Good morning, everyone. It's Friday. It's raining out. We are in the last vestiges of the hurricane, tropical storm here in Tennessee. So today I want to talk about anxiety and overcoming it. I actually had a rough day yesterday, an anxiety day. Kind of felt a little overwhelmed by some anxiety of just a lot of things going on in my life, and it all kind of caught up with me. And I just had a rough day, and I had to use a lot of my own tools and techniques and resources. And despite that, it was still tough. But there are a lot of things that can really help, especially if you are someone who has chronic anxiety. There are things we can do to help lessen that. So today I want to talk about overcoming anxiety, what it is, what causes it, why it can be harmful, why it can be good, and then give you guys a lot of tips and techniques and questions to ask ourselves to overcome. So what is anxiety? Anxiety is fear and worry, usually feelings of unease, and it can be accompanied by physical problems like issues like sweating, rapid heartbeat, loss of concentration, stomach. You can have like gut issues, especially if you have chronic anxiety. It can cause a lot of longer term physical ailments. And the causes of anxiety, there's a huge range, but I would say some of the most common causes are being triggered either by illness, or you're triggered by traumatic event, and something happens that triggers a memory of that trauma that you experienced. Big change can be a huge thing that can cause anxiety. Stress in general. So if you have a very stressful job, or you're going through a very stressful transition in your life, you can have moments of anxiety. If you started a new medication, can cause anxiety. And then there's just like pure genetics. There are genetics that can cause someone to be more prone to anxiety than others. And then there's also all those underlying conditions, psychological conditions that one might have that can then cause anxiety. And why is anxiety harmful? I feel like we all kind of know this, but it really impairs our day-to-day life. It impairs our function, or the way we utilize our mind. It can trigger and cause more mental health issues when we are dealing with, especially like chronic anxiety, where it's happening frequently. It definitely puts a strain on relationships. Because with anxiety, sometimes we don't want to go do anything, or we might have erratic behavior, might lash out because of anxiety. There's all kinds of issues that can happen that can put strain on our relationships. And I think the big one is that long-term chronic anxiety can lead to depression and suicidal thoughts. So, that's one of the big red flags there. And I want to throw this in there too. Can anxiety be good? Yes, it can be in moderation. It's a biological mechanism to help us stay focused and alert in moderation. And it also, athletes who have anxiety before an athletic performance oftentimes will do better in their performance when they have a little bit of that anxiety beforehand, because of the adrenaline that oftentimes will go with anxiety. Okay, so how do we overcome it? Because there are more harm than good when it comes to anxiety. And I think, especially for those who have chronic anxiety, there are some things that we can do to lessen the frequency of like anxiety attacks or anxietal strain on our bodies. And there are lifestyle things that we can do. We can eat a healthy diet, because when we're eating a healthy diet, we're nourishing our body and our minds. And this helps all the neurotransmitters work properly. And just our overall health will give us good overall health, will give us less anxiety in general. Having activity, doing consistent exercise helps reduce stress in our body and overall in our minds. And stress, it can be a trigger for anxiety. So we want to reduce our stress. So exercising regularly definitely helps. Getting sufficient sleep. I know this one's difficult, especially when you're in certain phases of your life, when you have very young children. This can be difficult, or if you're going through a very stressful period of your life. It just seems like sometimes there's never enough hours in the day, and so what goes first is our sleep. But getting sufficient sleep allows your body to heal and rest and recover each day, and this will help us overall lessen anxiety in our life. And limiting stimulants. So reducing your caffeine, which I know, sad face, I love coffee too. But yesterday, when I was having some anxiety issues, I really tried to limit my caffeine. I only had 1 cup of coffee in the morning, and that was it. Nothing else throughout the day. And then because it exacerbates anxiety, caffeine and alcohol as well, we want to make sure that we limit that so it doesn't exacerbate, especially someone who has like chronic anxiety. And then there are lots of cognitive behavioral things that we can do, and I feel like that's like, those are the things where we think about, what can I do to lessen the anxiety that I'm experiencing. So there are several things. The first thing that we can do is challenging those negative thoughts. So challenging negative thoughts, we've talked a lot about this, making sure that we're doing a lot of mindfulness and meditation. And meditation and mindfulness really is just noticing something in our body, something, a thought, or noticing a sensation in our body, and not bringing any judgment to it. That's what meditation is. That's what mindfulness is. And that's why it's helpful, because so often we feel something, we think something, and then we automatically judge and criticize it. And so that's why these things are helpful, specifically when we're talking about anxiety, because if we are just not going to judge the thought or the feeling or the sensation in our body, we're not putting any judgment to it, then we can just let it go by. Meditation is not the clearing of the mind. That is a misnomer that a lot of people have. It can be. It is clearing of the mind in the sense of clearing all the thoughts so that there are no judgments. But it's not just not thinking in general. It's just when a thought flies by or comes by, we notice it and we don't attach anything to it. And then there are lots of like deep breathing exercises we can do. I find that this is very helpful, especially if you have like a rapid heartbeat going along with an anxiety issue that you're having. Doing like box breathing. We've talked about box breathing, where you take in a breath, hold it for 3 to 4 seconds, and then you let it out for 3 to 4 seconds. Then you hold your breath again, then you breathe in for 4 seconds, etc. And you make a box with your breathing. So doing those kind of things really are helpful when we're doing breathing exercises. You can do grounding, like some grounding techniques where you, like a body scan grounding technique. This is really helpful. Where you lie down, or you find a quiet space and you lie down, close your eyes, and then you're going to focus on your body, and you're going to start from your toes, and then you're going to slowly work your way up to the top of your head. And as you go up along your body, you are going to notice tensions and sensations in your body. And again, this is where the mindfulness and meditation comes in, is you are not going to judge them. You're just going to notice them. So if you feel like tightness in a certain area of your body, you're not going to judge it. Oh, it's tightness because I'm feeling anxiety or because I did this, or you're not going to judge it. You're not going to attach anything to it. You're just going to notice it. There's tension in my ankle, or tension in my knee, or I feel pain in my thigh. So we're just going to notice it, and we're not going to attach anything to it. And you do that all the way up through your body. And what this does is it gets our mind off of the thing that's probably causing us anxiousness, because it really is a mind thing in our mind. That's what is really causing the anxiousness, is that we are overthinking, we are overplaying scenarios in our mind. And so this just kind of takes us out of that crazy cycle that we find ourselves in our mind. Okay, so like grounding and body scanning is really helpful. Progressive muscle relaxation can be a very helpful technique, where you, again, find a space where you are comfortable, lie down, and you're going to tense and then release all the different muscle groups in your body. So again, you lie down, you start from your toes and go all the way up through the rest of your body, and you're literally going to tense out muscles, hold it, and then you're going to let them go. And this, again, brings us out of the mind game that we're in. But also, when we're holding anxiety in our body, we're holding a lot of tension in our body. So this helps us notice those sensations of where tension already is, and we're bringing relaxation to those areas through our entire body. Another technique that we can do is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. I think I've talked about this before, where we find 5 things that we see, 4 things that we touch, 3 things we hear, 2 things we smell, and 1 thing that we taste. And again, this brings us out of the what's going on, everything's crazy, the mind cycle. And it brings us into being more mindful and in the present moment of everything that's around us. There's mindful eating technique. This is really interesting. This is something that I actually did last night. With some ice cream to help me. And then I ate the ice cream because it was absolutely delicious. So mindful eating. So this is where you're going to choose a food and you're going to examine it very closely. And then you're going to notice the colors of it. You're going to notice the aroma of it. You're going to notice the textures that you can see. And you're going to name these things in your mind. And sometimes these things are very helpful to do out loud, where you're actually like speaking the things out loud. So for example, with the ice cream last night, I closely examined it. I noticed the color was creamy white and brown caramel, and dark chocolatey color. The textures were smooth and creamy, sweet. So that you're going to like actually say them out loud and describe them. And what that does is it gets your mind moved into a different way, and you're not thinking about the thing that is driving you into anxiety. So then you're going to take a bite of it, and then you're going to do this, savor it, truly savor it, not just eat to eat. You're going to savor it, and you're going to notice all the tastes, the textures, etc. And again, you can talk through those things, or you can do them in your mind. So mindful eating. There's also guided imagery that you can do. So I talked about visualization a couple weeks ago, and this is one of those things where you use visualization. So it's guided imagery, where you get yourself in a comfortable position, you close your eyes, and then you're going to think about something that is the most relaxing scene for you. So for me, it would be the beach, lying under a cabana, and you're feeling all the sensations as if you were there. You're visualizing yourself there. It really helps if you've actually been in one of these spaces before. That's why I like to use the beach, because I love when I go to the beach and I'm laying under a cabana and I can feel the heat and the sunshine, the warmth of it, and kind of that gritty sand feeling that you have, especially if you've gone in the ocean, and just the sound of the waves and the seagulls and just all those sounds and textures and the smell and the breeze that you feel on your skin, and like you actually visualize yourself there. And again, this is taking us out of the mind game that we have about the situation that is bringing us anxiety. And it helps break the pattern of the obsessive thinking and the crazy cycle we might find ourselves in. Okay, there's other techniques, but I feel like those are super helpful things, cognitive wise that we can do. And then there is the category of professional help. So if we are someone, especially who has chronic anxiety, or our anxiety has kind of gotten away from us a little bit, and we have started thinking about suicidal thoughts or harming ourselves in some way, we absolutely need to make sure that we reach out for professional help. There are lots of different avenues for that. And one thing I would say specifically is getting yourself in therapy, because a therapist, a lot of these techniques I'm talking about, a therapist has even more techniques, and they are going to be able to walk through those techniques with you. They are specifically trained how to tackle anxiety from different viewpoints and different perspectives, depending on the kind of anxiety that you are experiencing. And also, I think sometimes we have to use medication, because sometimes anxiety is a biological chemical thing. Oftentimes it really is a lot of times a chemical imbalance, and especially for chronic anxiety. And so there's no shame in taking medication to help regulate this. And again, you would need to seek professional help for this, a psychiatrist, in order to be able to use medication. Another area where we can have more control in managing and overcoming anxiety is having a support system. So, your therapist is going to be part of your support system, a counselor, a coach. Those kind of people are a part of your support system. But also it's about your social connections with your friends, with your family, making sure that you have that safe space to talk to people and really let them know who you can reach out to when you are feeling anxious. And also support groups are awesome. So make sure that if you are dealing with anxiety, especially I think topical anxiety, so there's like things that might bring you more anxiety than others. Like I have a friend of mine whose daughter has a major mental health issue, and she joined a support group for the major mental health issue to learn about it. But then she really found that this group was really super supportive, because they were just there and they understood, because so often the things that bring us anxiety, other people don't understand. So finding people who understand what you're going through and through a support group can be a wonderful tool and resource for helping us overcome. There are lots of tools out there, like apps, like Headspace and Calm. Journaling is wonderful. I've actually written an anxiety and stress journal, which has tons of prompts to help you overcome anxiety, especially for someone with chronic anxiety. You can actually get that journal at my website, briannalgeorge.com, and on Amazon. Let's see, there are other apps that you can use called like Mood Kit, which can help you regulate moods, and Mind Shift, which is more cognitive mindfulness techniques. There's also Shine, Talkspace, and Better Health, which are great apps for finding support. Okay, I think also we can ask ourselves questions. If we find ourselves in an anxiety attack, there are some questions that we can ask ourselves to get ourselves out of it immediately. These are super helpful. So the first question I asked, and I used these questions on myself yesterday, is, am I in immediate danger? That's a great question, because oftentimes the answer is no. And that will just dispel the anxiety right there. What am I feeling right now? Like, what is it I'm actually feeling? Just acknowledging those feelings and validating them can help us remove anxiety and get out of anxiety. Where is my focus? Like, where is my focus right now? And sometimes we don't even realize that we're like ruminating on something, and we're like, oh, I'm focusing on something that's not even my problem, not even in my control at all. And that will help us remove ourselves from that thought process. What is the worst that can happen? That's a question I asked myself yesterday about the thing that I was having anxiety about. What is the worst that could actually happen? And that helps us figure out the worst case scenario, and automatically sometimes then we can throw it out. It's like, that's not really going to happen. Such a small, minute chance that would happen. But so often our mind goes to that worst case scenario of what we think absolutely the worst that could happen. And then, we have to ask ourselves, what can I do to calm myself down? In the past, when I felt anxiety, what did I do to calm myself down? Maybe it's one of those techniques that I talked about. So just reminding ourselves and asking ourselves, what do I know already that I can do to help myself? And have I experienced this before? And how did I overcome it? Is a great question. And also kind of going back to the, what am I focusing on, is we ask ourselves, is this true? Is this thing that I'm thinking that's bringing me anxiety, is there even any truth to it? This thing that is bringing me anxiety, this thought pattern that is bringing me anxiety? And what tools do I have? What tools do I have in order to overcome this? And what evidence do I have that this is true or not true? So what tools do I have to overcome this? If it is true, what things do I have that I can overcome this with? And if it's not true, or if I'm trying to convince myself it's true, what evidence do I have that it's even true? And then I think, again, who can I talk to? Who are my resources? Do I have safe people? Who can I talk to about this? Do I have a support group for this? And then the last question, oh my gosh, so my recording stopped. So, okay, quickly, the last question is what brings me joy? Okay, so your challenge today is, if you are somebody who is going through anxiety, what tools do you have? Look at what tools you have. Look at your resources. And maybe there are some that are missing that you need to add to your tool belt. And maybe you need some more resources. So check out some of the ones that I mentioned here. And if you find yourself in a place of anxiety, maybe try some of the techniques that I mentioned here. Maybe do some box breathing. Maybe do the mindful eating. Maybe do the body scan grounding techniques. And if you are someone who needs to talk to someone, you need to talk to a coach, or you need to talk to a counselor. I have a wealth of people I could connect you to, but maybe you just need someone who's safe to talk to. I would love to be that safe person for you and just give you some feedback, however you need it, or just sit in presence with you. All right, guys, have a fantastic Friday and a great weekend.